All right, so I got a question this week from a first-time home buyer. Right after we had put together the rock-solid pre-approval, he was kind of just like, so what happens after I get an accepted offer?
Aha.
And
a flurry of activity.
Exactly, because I think people know that it's not just I show up at the closing table, but it's like, whoa, what happens in between I sign the line and I arrive at the closing table
with
right.
my sack full of money.
Exactly. So I just wanted to go through that again as folks are writing offers here at the start of the year.
Well, the most common, the first one in 99 and 44/100% of transaction is the home inspection contingency,
which I always point out, we mortgage guys do not require an inspection, but it's smart because you want to make sure that the roof's not falling off or the basement's not caving in.
Right. And I think that's commonplace now. I would say I don't, unless it's new construction.
But even then, I'm just saying there's no downside.
Yeah. I would say that's the only time that it would say, oh, hey, it's new construction and everything's going to be fine.
Well, and as you point out, you might want to give yourself more time on the inspection than you otherwise might think.
That's the critical reminder, is you might have 15 days to complete the inspection. And by the way, different states are different. In Florida and Illinois, it's like 5 days. And I'm thinking, do they have like an overabundance of inspectors or something? But in Wisconsin, it's very common to have at least 10, sometimes 15. But that is the entire time that you have to complete the initial inspection and any subsequent inspections. When I was helping your sister and Tim buy their home, we had a couple of situations where we needed to bring in a structural engineer because of the basement. Guess what? The general inspector said, this wall doesn't look right.
Yeah.
So then we have the contractual right as buyers to bring in a basement expert.
Could he come the next day?
He was, because I know him.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Because I know him. But, what if it's the height of summer season? Another one, roof inspectors, boy, roofers are, guess what, really busy in the summer.
Yeah.
And so you got to get that first general inspection done right away, in my opinion, so that you have time. Because there is no automatic extension of the home inspection.
The seller could just run the clock out.
Exactly, could run the clock out, and if you don't, then throw your defect flag, you're out of time, and you lose the right to throw the flag. All right, what's the second one?
So second base is normally your appraisal contingency, and for folks who are getting financing, they include that appraisal contingency so that if the appraisal comes in $1 less than your agreed price, you do not have to proceed.
And our typical timing on that we see is 28 or 30 days, something like that, which is fine. And if you don't throw the flag by that time, if you don't have your appraisal back, and that deadline passes, you lose the right to complain. The appraisal comes in low, it's like, sorry, you can no longer throw that flag. Now, luckily, we have really good appraisal service at Accunet. Okay, and what's do we have to take another break?
I want to take a break before we talk about third base, but we'll talk about your financing contingency when we come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
Don't just find a house, find your home. Here's more of the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And David Wickert as well.
So talking about the different bases of most offers and the contingencies between when you get that accepted offer and when you arrive at the closing table. First base was your inspection contingency. Second base was your appraisal contingency. Third base here is your financing contingency. So, unless you're writing a check to buy the house, you are protecting yourself in that financing contingency that you can make sure that if you can't line up the mortgage, you have a contractual out to not have to fulfill the obligation to purchase the home.
You can throw the flag and say, I couldn't get approved for the loan, I'm out. Then, by the way, the seller has the right to give you the mortgage, in case you never read that fine print.
Oh.
The seller can step up and say, yes, I'll make you that 5% down, $200,000 mortgage at 0.99%. Okay. Here's the money.
Wow.
And the other little asterisk, as you're describing that, if you were to say I'm a cash buyer, you actually have another typical contingency that you have to meet, which is within 7 days you have to prove to the seller that you really have the cash.
Show me the money.
Show me the money. Okay, but back to the norm.
Well, and so on this financing contingency, to tie back to your question on or topic about condos, I had a conversation with a gentleman, a home shopper, who raised a legitimate concern. He's like, well, what if I write to buy somebody's house, condo in 40 days, and then I find out on day 31 that the condo doesn't meet the criteria.
Fannie Mae criteria.
Right. And it's a legitimate question, and part of my half answer to him was like, well, we don't know until we know.
Right.
Until
we have to get those bits of information. We have to get the condo questionnaire. We have to get because he was debating whether to put 10% or 5% down. Correct. So the answer that I would tell you to get back to him with is, sir, if you put 10% down, we will have a lot more certainty.
Correct.
Because then we get that light touch called a limited review from Fannie and Freddie. If you put 9.99% down or less, now we need all this documentation as long as our arm, and it's got to be analyzed.
Correct.
And we did have one earlier in the summer, I want to say it was August, where we did get all that stuff, and we had to deny the loan at the 11th hour. We even took it to the portfolio lender that's more liberal because the association was not putting away 10% of their annual budget into a slush fund.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just
that killed the deal.
We don't know until we know. So anyway, so third base is your financing contingency, and then we arrive at home plate.
The closing.
The closing.